The Nexus Scholarium floated in the void between star systems like a monument to excess, which was exactly what it was supposed to be. 300 years of accumulated wealth from 17 different species had been poured into creating the perfect educational environment. Assuming your definition of perfect involved zero-gravity meditation pods, atmospheric processors that could simulate the precise humidity levels of obscure moon colonies, and dining facilities that served 400 different biological requirements without anyone having to acknowledge that some species ate things other species considered sentient. The institution prided itself on producing the galaxy's elite. The diplomats, scientists, corporate overlords, and occasional artists who'd convinced themselves that suffering for their craft meant choosing between two trust fund options. Students came from families whose names appeared in planetary governance records going back centuries. They wore their privilege like exoskeletons, which was appropriate since several species actually had exoskeletons, though theirs were significantly less metaphorical. The dominant species at the Scholarium were the Kixari, whose homeworld Kix Prime boasted 0.3 g gravity and an atmosphere so carefully balanced that a strong breeze counted as a natural disaster. They had translucent skin that shifted colors based on emotional states, which made lying difficult, but made displaying superiority remarkably easy. Their biology was delicate, their culture refined, and their opinion of themselves absolutely insufferable. Then there were the Maroon, stocky quadrupeds from a world where the most dangerous predator was a herbivore that occasionally got territorial during mating season. They had 4 hearts, which they claimed made them naturally suited for multitasking, though mostly it just meant they could be pretentious about 4 different things simultaneously. The Lethani floated through corridors in environmental suits filled with methane, communicating through bioluminescent patterns that everyone pretended to find beautiful rather than vaguely nauseating. The Korvathi were avian descendants who'd evolved on a low-gravity moon and insisted their hollow bones made them naturally elegant. The Drell were amphibious scholars who required moisture pods every 4 hours and treated this inconvenience as a mark of sophistication rather than poor evolutionary planning. And then there were a dozen other species, each convinced their particular biological quirks made them special. For 3 centuries, these species had coexisted in academic harmony, which meant they competed viciously while maintaining elaborate social protocols that made their cruelty seem civilized. They formed hierarchies based on family wealth, planetary influence, and the kind of casual discrimination that people with too much time and money perfect into an art form. Then, humanity submitted an application for institutional membership. The Scholarium's Board of Regents had debated for 2 years. Humans were problematic. They came from Earth, a planet whose environmental classification made xenobiologists question their career choices. Class 12 Deathworld. The designation alone was enough to make most species reconsider first contact protocols. But humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel independently, had established colonies across 3 systems before anyone noticed, and possessed the kind of stubborn determination that made them difficult to ignore. Eventually, political pressure and curiosity won out. The board approved humanity's petition with the understanding that human students would adapt to civilized standards. They would learn to operate in reduced gravity environments. They would understand that physical confrontation was absolutely forbidden. They would recognize that the Scholarium social order had existed for centuries, and newcomers did not disrupt established hierarchies. They really should have asked humanity's opinion on that last point. The student who would become the center of the galaxy's most entertaining educational disaster arrived on a Monday. Though the Scholarium operated on a standardized temporal system that made calling it Monday technically incorrect. She registered under the name Kira Okonkwo, though the registrar's system struggled with human naming conventions and kept trying to alphabetize her by given name. She was 22 by Earth reckoning, which made her slightly older than most first-cycle students, having spent 2 years at what humans called university before transferring. Her academic records were exceptional: molecular biology, xenochemistry, and enough publications to suggest she actually cared about the work rather than just the credentials. She walked into orientation assembly with the posture of someone who'd spent her entire life in 1.0 G and found the Scholarium's 0.6 G standard almost insultingly easy. While other students glided or floated or skittered depending on their physiology, she walked with the heavy deliberation of someone fighting the urge to bounce with every step. The assembly hall could hold 3,000 students, and approximately 2,000 of them turned to stare at the human. She was shorter than the Shiksari, bulkier than the Korvathi, and lacked any of the obviously impressive biological features that species use to establish dominance. No color-changing skin, no impressive wingspan, no bioluminescence. Just brown skin, dark hair pulled into a practical knot, and eyes that took in the assembled students with the expression of someone evaluating a mildly interesting museum exhibit. In the back section reserved for Kiksari elite, 3 students noted her arrival with particular interest. Zaxith had a name that was actually a series of chromatic pulses, but he'd adopted the phonetic approximation because it made him sound dangerous. His family controlled mineral rights on 6 different asteroid colonies, which made them wealthy enough to consider morality optional. His skin currently displayed confident purple with gold undertones, the Kiksari equivalent of walking around with a neon sign reading, "I'm better than you." His constant companion was Velris, whose family's shipping empire moved goods across 40 systems and occasionally moved other things that customs officials were paid not to notice. She was smaller than Zaxith, which meant nothing in Kiksari social dynamics, since physical size was irrelevant when you could simply buy larger things. The third member of their group was Thorn, a Murun whose diplomatic immunity stemmed from his family's position in the Murun High Council. He had the particular cruelty of someone who discovered early that consequences were things that happened to other people. These 3 had spent the last 4 years making life miserable for anyone who didn't meet their standards of acceptable, which was essentially everyone who wasn't them. They operated with impunity, protected by family wealth, institutional inertia, and the unfortunate reality that wealthy donors' children could commit minor atrocities as long as they didn't create inconvenient paperwork. Did you see the human? Velris's skin flickered with amused orange. She walks like she's angry at the floor. "Deathworlder," Zaxith said, making it sound like an insult. Probably doesn't understand how to move in civilized gravity. Thorn's 4 hearts beat in syncopated amusement. Someone should teach her. Help her adapt. We're very welcoming here at the Scholarium. The 3 shared a look that would have warned anyone with functional survival instincts. Unfortunately, they were looking at each other rather than at the human, who'd taken a seat in the midsection and was reading something on her data tablet with the focus of someone who'd already dismissed her surroundings as unimportant. The dean of students, a Lethani named Paraxis, who communicated through translated bioluminescence, floated to the podium to deliver the traditional welcome speech. It covered the usual topics: academic excellence, cultural diversity, the importance of maintaining the Scholarium's reputation across known space. We are pleased to welcome students from 19 different species this cycle, Poraxis's suit speakers announced while his body flashed diplomatic white. Including our first human transfer student, we trust all students will extend appropriate courtesy to those from different backgrounds. Appropriate courtesy. The phrase hung in the recycled air like a challenge. Kira didn't react to being singled out. She kept reading her tablet, occasionally making notes, and generally projecting the energy of someone who'd attended enough orientations to know they were all the same, regardless of species. Classes began the following day, and that's when the education really started. Though not the education the scholarium had planned. Kira's first course was Comparative Biochemistry, taught by Professor Elm, a Drell who'd written the standard texts on cross-species molecular interactions. The lecture hall was arranged in concentric circles, with each ring adjusted for different species' optimal viewing heights and angles. She took a seat in the human-designated section, which was exactly one seat since she was the only human enrolled. The chair had been adjusted for human proportions, which meant it was larger and sturdier than most others in the hall. Zaxith and his group sat 3 rows up, close enough to observe, far enough to maintain plausible deniability. Professor Elm began the lecture with a discussion of oxygen tolerance across species. The Kiksari homeworld maintains atmospheric oxygen at 12%. Ellen's translation device rendered his amphibious sounds into universal standard. The Maroon requires 16%. The Corvathi need supplemental oxygen in standard environments. And humans. Every eye analog in the lecture hall focused on Kira. Humans evolved in 21% oxygen, which is sufficient to support combustion. Their atmosphere is literally flammable. They also developed tolerance for carbon dioxide levels that would cause respiratory distress in most species here. A Corvathi student's feathers ruffled with distress. How do they survive? Adaptation, Ellen said. Earth's environment is hostile. Humanity adapted. Next slide. Kira took notes, her expression suggesting she'd heard this before, and found it about as revelatory as being told water was wet. After class, as students filtered into the corridors, Zaxith made his move. He drifted alongside Kira with the practiced ease of someone who'd perfected casual cruelty. Having trouble with the gravity? His skin flashed condescending green. I imagine it's difficult, coming from such a heavy world. Kira looked at him with the kind of patience usually reserved for explaining basic concepts to slow children. It's like walking on a moon. Manageable. A moon. Velrus joined in, her skin rippling with amusement. How quaint. Everything must seem so light here. Everything is light here, Kira agreed. The gravity, the atmosphere, the people. The insult took a moment to register. By the time Zaxith's skin flashed angry red, Kira had already walked away, her heavy footfalls echoing in the low-gravity environment like someone beating a drum very slowly. Thorn's quad-heart rhythm accelerated with interest. She insulted us. She insulted us, Zaxith confirmed, his skin cycling through colors that indicated he was experiencing emotions he didn't have words for. No one insults us, Velrus added, which was technically true because most students were too frightened or sensible to try. Thus began a campaign of harassment that would have made any human high school bully proud, if those human high school bullies had access to advanced technology and zero adult supervision. They started with social exclusion, which was difficult because Kira didn't seem interested in socializing. They moved to academic sabotage, deleting her lab data and corrupting her project files, which backfired when she'd backed everything up on multiple systems because I'm not an idiot. They tried physical intimidation, blocking corridors and forcing her to go around, which stopped working when she simply walked through them. Not violently, just walked. And in 0.6 G, her 1.0 G adapted body mass meant walking through a Kiksari was like walking through a hologram. There one moment, gently displaced the next. They attempted public humiliation, spreading rumors about human biology that were technically true but phrased to sound disgusting. Did you know humans shed their entire outer skin layer every few weeks? They leak salt water from their skin when they're hot. They have to manually clean their teeth or they rot. Kira's response to each attempt was the same. Complete, total, infuriating indifference. She attended classes. She completed assignments. She joined study groups with students who weren't complete wastes of oxygen. She exercised in the Scholarium's high-gravity gym, which most species avoided because it went up to 0.9 G, and that was considered dangerous. After 6 weeks of failed harassment, Zaxith's group decided to escalate. The Scholarium had a research facility in the outer ring called the Exobiology Conservatory, a massive biodome containing plant life from 40 different worlds. It was usually empty during evening hours, maintained by automated systems, and absolutely perfect for the kind of confrontation that Zaxith specialized in. They forged a message from Professor Eln requesting Kira's presence for an urgent consultation regarding her research project. She'd been working on something involving Earth plants' adaptation to low-gravity environments, which was actually quite fascinating if you cared about that sort of thing. Kira arrived at the conservatory at 19 euros station time, carrying a data pad and wearing the expression of someone who suspected this was going to be annoying but couldn't prove it yet. The biodome was beautiful in the way that things designed by committees usually aren't. Bioluminescent plants from Lethan Prime cast blue-green light across pathways. Crystalline flowers from Kix Prime chimed softly in the artificial breeze. Carnivorous specimens from Maroon were safely contained behind force fields, which was good planning since several of them were large enough to eat a Korvathi. Zaxith and his group waited near the Terran section, which was appropriately dramatic since it contained earth plants that the other species found vaguely threatening. Roses with actual thorns. Venus flytraps that moved. A small bamboo stand that grew disturbingly fast. Lost human? Zaxith emerged from behind a mushroom colony that glowed purple, his skin matching the ambient light in a way he probably thought was intimidating. Kira stopped walking and sighed. It was the sigh of someone who'd seen this movie before and knew exactly how it ended. "Let me guess," she said. "You lured me here. You're going to threaten me. I'm supposed to be scared." We all learn a valuable lesson about the social hierarchy, and I slink away to accept my place at the bottom of your arbitrary pecking order. Velris drifted closer, her skin flashing surprised yellow before settling into angry crimson. "You think you're clever." "I think I'm tired," Kira corrected. "There's a difference. Look, we can skip to the end of this. You try something stupid. I defend myself. You get hurt. Everyone's surprised. We all go home. Sound good?" Thorn moved to block the exit, his four-legged stance positioned for maximum intimidation. "You're outnumbered, 6-1. You should show respect." 6-1, Kira repeated, looking at each of them in turn. "Okay. Math was never my strong suit, but let's check. You, the dramatic one behind the ferns, and 2 more hiding by the force field. Yeah, that's 6. Cool." The 2 Kixari students who thought they were hiding behind the carnivorous plant display froze, their skin flashing guilty orange. "Here's what's going to happen." Kira set her datapad down carefully. "You're going to move. I'm going to leave. We're all going to pretend this didn't happen. Alternative, you try to stop me, and we discover what happens when 0.3G biology meets 1.0 kinesthetics. Spoiler, it's not pretty." Zaxith made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter, but probably meant something more aggressive in Shiksari. "You think you can fight all of us?" "I don't think I can fight you," Kira said patiently. "I know I don't need to." Then Zaxith rushed her, which was his first mistake. His second was assuming that moving fast in low gravity would overwhelm her. His third was existing in the same space where she decided she was done being patient. What happened next took approximately 6 seconds, though the security footage would be analyzed frame by frame for weeks afterward. Zaxith's lunge, which would have been impressive against another Kixari, hit nothing. Kira had shifted her weight, not quickly by human standards, but faster than anything the Kixari had encountered, and Zaxith found himself grabbing air. Then he found himself on the ground, which was concerning because he didn't remember how he got there. Velrus and another Kixari attacked simultaneously, which showed commitment, if not intelligence. Kira's hand shot out, caught Velrus's arm with the kind of grip strength that Earth's gravity required, and simply held her. Velrus yanked back, trying to free herself, and discovered that human grip strength in reduced gravity was approximately equivalent to a hydraulic press set to gentle. The second Kixari bounced off Kira's shoulder and spun away like a colorful top. Thorn charged, all 4 legs pumping, 4 hearts racing, 0 thoughts happening. Kira stepped aside, just stepped. Nothing fancy. And Thorn discovered that momentum in low gravity was still momentum. He crashed into the bamboo display with a sound that bamboo really shouldn't make. The remaining 2 Kixari had the survival instinct to freeze. Kira stood in the middle of the conservatory, not breathing hard, not even looking particularly bothered, while 6 alien students dealt with various stages of what just happened. "Okay," she said conversationally. "Everyone good? No broken anything? Because I really don't want to explain to medical why I had to hurt you badly enough to require regeneration." Zaxith's skin was cycling through colors that didn't exist in standard Kixari emotional spectrum, probably inventing new ways to express humiliation and terror simultaneously. "What are you?" he managed to ask. "Tired," Kira repeated. "I'm tired. I'm tired of being harassed. I'm tired of pretending your behavior is acceptable. I'm tired of the assumption that because I'm new, I'm weak. Mostly, I'm just tired of you specifically." She picked up her data pad, checked it for damage, and looked at the 6 students with something approaching pity. "Here's your actual lesson," she said. "I'm from a Class 12 Deathworld. That's not a fun fact. That's not a curiosity. That's a warning label. Earth tried to kill my species for millions of years. We survived anyway. We're not stronger because we wanted to be. We're stronger because anything weaker died. You want to know what that means?" She gestured at them sprawled across the conservatory floor. "It means this was me being gentle. It means I pulled every strike, controlled every movement, and actively tried not to hurt you. Because that's what civilization means to humans, choosing not to use the capabilities evolution gave us. But you keep pushing, keep testing, keep assuming that choosing peace means being unable to choose violence." Kira started walking toward the exit, then paused. "Security will be here in about 90 seconds. The conservatory's biosensors detected elevated stress hormones and potential violence. You're going to tell them exactly what happened. You attacked me. I defended myself. And if you try to spin this any other way, remember, security footage doesn't lie, and I'm really good at providing evidence." She left, just walked out, her heavy footfalls fading into the distance while 6 students tried to process what had just happened. Security arrived, along with medical, and found a scene that would require extensive reports, multiple investigations, and several emergency calls to parents who thought their donations made their children untouchable. The aftermath was predictable in the way that catastrophes are predictable only after they've finished catastrophing. Medical examination revealed that Zaxith had a sprained membrane in his arm, which would heal in 3 days with standard treatment. Velris had bruising on her wrist that looked worse than it was. Thorn had strained 2 legs and injured his pride significantly. The other 3 had minor impacts and major trauma. Kira had exactly 0 injuries. The security footage was, as promised, extremely clear. It showed 6 students cornering one, showed Zaxith initiating physical contact, and showed Kira's response being precisely calibrated to end the confrontation without causing permanent damage. Any first-year law student could have built an airtight self-defense case. And the Scholarium employed lawyers who made first-year law students look like particularly optimistic mushrooms. Zaxith's family tried to have her expelled. Velris's family threatened to withdraw their shipping contracts. Thorn's diplomatic credentials meant his family attempted to classify the incident as an interspecies assault requiring formal arbitration. The Scholarium's Board of Regents reviewed the evidence, consulted with legal counsel, and discovered that Deathworld species had specific protections under Galactic Council law. Attempting to physically intimidate a human was legally equivalent to attacking a Cravathi war beast or provoking a Drexian apex predator. You could do it, but you accepted all consequences. The 6 students were expelled. Their families' donations were returned with polite letters explaining that the Scholarium did not tolerate violence, harassment, or attempted assault regardless of family status. And the institution was forced to issue a statement about tolerance, diversity, and the importance of understanding that different species had different capabilities. But the real education happened in the weeks following the incident, when xenobiology courses across the Scholarium became unexpectedly popular. Professor Ellen found himself teaching to packed lecture halls, which was new. Typically, xenobiology attracted students interested in medicine or ecology. Now he had everyone from business majors to art students attending his lectures on Deathworld classifications. Earth, he explained, pulling up a holographic display of the blue-green planet, is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld based on multiple environmental factors that individually would be concerning, but in combination create an environment that most species would consider actively hostile. The display zoomed to show continental masses, ocean systems, and weather patterns that looked like they were designed by someone who hated tourists. Gravity is 1.0 G standard, approximately 3 times what Kikshari experience on their homeworld. Humans evolved to move, run, and function in this gravity from birth. Their skeletal structure, muscular development, and cardiovascular systems are all adapted to this environment. When they arrive here at 0.6 G standard, they are operating at enhanced capacity. A Corvathi student raised a wing. But surely that would make them clumsy, used to heavier gravity? You'd think that, Ellen agreed. But humans are pursuit predators. They evolved to track prey across vast distances over varied terrain. Their kinesthetic sense, their ability to know where their body is in space, is extremely refined. They adapt to new gravity conditions within hours. Most species need weeks. Nervous glances were exchanged. The atmosphere is another factor, Ellen continued. 21% oxygen is sufficient to support rapid combustion. Earth has regular wildfires caused by lightning. The weather includes hurricanes with wind speeds exceeding 400 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can level settlements, and temperature variations that range from -60 to +60 Celsius. They can't survive all of that, someone protested. They do. They live everywhere on their planet. Polar regions, equatorial zones, mountain ranges, below sea level. They've established permanent settlements in every climate zone their world offers. No other species has that range. The display shifted to show Earth fauna. A tiger, a crocodile, a hippopotamus, a box jellyfish, an image of a mosquito, which generated horror when Ellen explained disease vectors. Earth's ecosystem contains thousands of species that can kill humans, predators that hunt them, parasites that infect them, plants that poison them, microorganisms that have killed millions throughout their history. Humans evolved in an environment of constant threat. Their immune systems are hyperactive. Their reflexes are tuned to detect danger in milliseconds. Their pain tolerance is high because individuals who couldn't tolerate pain died. That sounds horrific, a Lathani student's suit speakers translated. That's natural selection, Ellen corrected. Earth is competitive. Resources are limited. Species compete for survival. Humans didn't just survive. They dominated every terrestrial environment. They're apex predators who developed agriculture, technology, and art. They can run for hours without stopping. They can heal from injuries that would be fatal to most of us. They can adapt to environments that would kill other species. A long silence filled the lecture hall. "So, the human student?" a maroon finally asked. She was holding back. "Significantly," Ellen confirmed. "Review the security footage. Every movement was controlled. Every strike was measured. She disabled 6 attackers in 6 seconds without causing permanent injury. That's not violence. That's restraint. If she'd responded with full capacity, medical would still be reconstructing what happened." The lecture ended with a new understanding spreading through the student population. Kira wasn't dangerous because she was aggressive. She was dangerous because she was controlled. She could hurt them and chose not to. That calculation, that restraint, was more frightening than any display of raw strength. Word spread like bioluminescent patterns in dark water. The human was here on her terms. She was polite because she chose to be. She was peaceful because violence wasn't productive. And if you mistook that choice for weakness, she would educate you, gently, if you were very lucky. Kira continued attending classes, completing research, and maintaining grades that placed her in the top 15% of her cohort. She joined the xenobiology research group, the molecular engineering lab, and the cross-species debate team. She was helpful, collaborative, and apparently determined to prove humans could function in civilized society. But everyone knew. Everyone understood. The human from Earth was being nice, and that was infinitely more terrifying than if she'd been mean. 3 months after the incident, the Scholarium held its annual Academic Olympics, a series of competitions designed to showcase different species' capabilities. Events were calibrated for various environments, gravity conditions, and biological requirements. Kira signed up for the problem-solving marathon, a 12-hour competition involving complex puzzles, physical challenges, and collaborative tasks designed to test mental and physical endurance. Most species sent teams of 4, rotating members to prevent exhaustion. Kira competed alone. 12 hours. 17 different challenges ranging from mathematical proofs to climbing walls in variable gravity to chemical synthesis under time pressure. She finished in the top 10, looking tired but functional, while other species teams were being treated for exhaustion after completing 3-hour rotations. The announcers struggled to contextualize it. The human competitor has completed the full 12-hour marathon without substitution. Medical? Is this normal for their species? Medical confirmed that yes. Humans could function for extended periods when motivated. Something about persistence hunting and evolutionary advantages. Kira collected her certification, thanked the organizers, and went to help Medical treat other competitors for the kind of exhaustion she'd apparently trained herself to manage. That's when the wider Scalarium population truly understood. The conservatory incident wasn't a fluke. The human wasn't strong for her size or fast for her build. She was operating at a baseline that other species needed technological enhancement to reach. And she was still being gentle. The expelled students watched from their respective homeworlds, transferred to lesser institutions, and perhaps understood what they'd attempted. They'd picked a fight with something that could outlast them, shrug off their attacks, and then help them afterward. The Scalarium quietly updated their orientation materials to include comprehensive information about Deathworld species. The key lesson: kindness is not weakness. Politeness is not inability. And just because they're being civilized doesn't mean they can't demonstrate exactly why they're the apex predator. Kira graduated 4 years later with highest honors, a doctorate in comparative xenobiology focusing on cross-species adaptation, and a reputation that followed her into whatever career awaited. Students who'd attended during her time told the story to incoming classes, embellishing only slightly because the truth was already impressive enough. The moral spread through academic circles like a particularly virulent but educational plague. Don't start what you can't finish. Don't mistake restraint for weakness. And never, ever target someone from a death world unless you fully understand what that classification means. Because humans evolved in hell and built civilization anyway. They're polite because they chose to be. They're peaceful because they decided violence wasn't optimal. And if you mistake that choice for inability, they'll educate you. Gently, if you're lucky. The Nexus Scalarium still accepts human students. They're model members of the academic community, contributing to research, participating in cultural programs, and generally proving that Deathworld species can function in civilized society. But every incoming class gets the lecture. Every new student sees the security footage from the conservatory. And everyone learns the most important lesson the Scalarium never intended to teach. She looked harmless. She acted friendly. She tolerated harassment with patience that seemed infinite, right up until she didn't. And that's when they learned what billions of years of competitive evolution looks like when it stops being nice. The galaxy's privilege discovered what humanity had known since the first predator made the mistake of seeing them as prey. We're not trapped here with you. You're trapped here with us. The Scalarium continued its mission. Debates about quantum mechanics, arguments over artistic interpretation, the eternal cafeteria, complaints about food synthesizers. Life went on. Civilization persisted. And somewhere in that expensive monument to academic excellence, a human student took notes, conducted research, and reminded everyone through her very existence that the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the creature that looks threatening. It's the one that doesn't need to look threatening because it already knows exactly how dangerous it is. The difference between civilization and savagery, she'd tell you if you asked, isn't the absence of capability. It's the choice not to use it, right up until that choice is no longer viable. And then, well, then you learn why Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, and why underestimating someone from such a place is the kind of mistake you only make once, if you're lucky enough to get the chance to learn from it.